And Lisa, I want to go back to you really quickly because we've also seen Democratic lawmakers trying to walk that exact line we were just talking about with David. I hear you have more information on that video we played of Senator Padilla at this Kristi Noem event. There is reporting now that he was, in fact, arrested outside the room.
It appears that he was arrested outside the room, Christina. I am now in possession of video that was taken from a different angle of this same incident. The video you showed earlier shows Senator Padilla being escorted out of the room and quickly ends thereafter. The video that I have seen shows that what happens when he goes into that hallway, he is further pushed into the hallway by somebody wearing an FBI shirt. He is then pushed onto the ground and placed under arrest with his hands behind his back as he is face down on the floor by 3 additional officers. Obviously, we don't have full information about the altercation that led him to be pushed out of the room by personnel either from the Department of Homeland Security or the FBI. But this is yet another escalation between the Department of Homeland Security and those agents working at their disposal and lawmakers. Obviously, LaMonica McIver, a congresswoman from New Jersey, has now been indicted on 3 federal charges for which she could face up to 18 years in prison in an altercation that started not dissimilarly from this. You know, one of the things I was looking for is whether or not Senator Padilla himself put his hands back on those who were involved in that altercation with him, as LaMonica McIver is alleged to have done. And you can see from the video you're showing right now somewhat that Senator Padilla is pushing back or has his hands on the officer. From the video that I have seen, it's much clearer. At some point, he then stops resisting, puts his hands up, and nonetheless, they push him down the hallway, put him face down, his hands behind his back. He's arrested. I don't know yet what has going to come of this and where Senator Padilla has been taken. But this is a big escalation of what has been happening in California. Senator Padilla, as David was mentioning earlier, is a son of California. He grew up in Pacoima in Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley, where I'm also from. Pacoima is a heavily Latino community. Senator Padilla, born to immigrants. He himself is the pride of much of the Latino community in the Los Angeles area. To see him manhandled in this way, like a common everyday protester, is going to be particularly jarring for many who are watching from California, where he is the senior senator.
Thank you, Lisa. I also want to bring in NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Julia, obviously, this is breaking news. We're still trying to find out what's going on. There's video of the senator being put in cuffs, but it seems like he might not have been arrested or detained in custody. He might have been released. Do you have any updates on what actually happened after that video we saw where he was put into cuffs?
I don't have any updates on that, Christina, but I'm just going off the same video that you are. I also just want to talk about what Noem was up against when she took the podium today. We understand, or we saw on Truth Social this morning, that President Trump posted almost a change, a complete shift in tone from what this administration has been doing. He said, our great farmers and business people in hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good longtime workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace. He goes on to say, this is not good. We must protect our farmers, but get criminals out of the USA. Changes are coming. So you have Noem taking the podium in Los Angeles today amid protesters, amid this very high-profile protest like we just saw from Senator Padilla, having to come up and explain why ICE's presence is worth it in this community, why it's worth the protest it sparked. And she goes over the criminals. She shows you those mugshots on the walls. But of course, when they're talking about arresting hundreds, being able to talk about a dozen people with criminal records doesn't exactly get to that part. And as Trump is saying in this Truth Social post, he's hearing backlash, that there are people who do not have criminal records who are being arrested and they're being taken out of these businesses, particularly in the agriculture and hospitality sectors. And he says that's not good. Changes are coming. So then Homeland Security Secretary Noem had to take the podium today amid that and explain why all of these arrests are worth it. Also, right before she took the podium, I mean, within seconds, DHS put out a press release saying that they are revoking the status of over 532,000 people who came into the country legally under a Biden administration program for people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Not only are they telling them they have to leave the country immediately, something they did get permission from the Supreme Court to do very recently, But now they're saying that they have to hand in their work authorizations. And we understand from reporting that they are going to tell their employers that these people are no longer authorized to work. So while you have Trump talking about how he's hearing complaints from the economy about people being arrested with no criminal record, Noem's taking the podium, explaining why this is necessary, and DHS is saying that there are now 532,000 fewer people in the workforce as of minutes ago because of these new changes. So we're seeing, I don't know if it's a shift in policy from the White House, but it's certainly dire conflicts between their messaging, their actions, and what the president is saying on this issue today. So there are a lot of outstanding questions amid all this chaos, violence, and confusion in Los Angeles. I just wanted to make everyone clear of that context.
And if you can hold on just 1 second, because Kristi Noem has just been asked about this incident, and I believe we have that sound for everyone now.
We just want to just witness here.
Oh, you know what? I don't even know the senator. He did not request a meeting with me or to speak with me. So when I leave here, I'll have a conversation with him and visit and find out really what his concerns were. I think everybody in America would agree that that wasn't appropriate. That if you wanted to have a civil discussion, especially as a leader, a public official, that you would reach out and try to have a conversation. For instance, I have left voicemails for Governor Newsom wanting to have a conversation. Has he returned them? No, he hasn't. I know that the White House has reached out and had conversations with Mayor Bass as well. And so that's what you do to try to start these conversations and ask for partnerships. Unfortunately, we haven't met that in this area. I'll visit with the senator and find out really what his concerns are and what we can do.
And as far as the estimate number of people that have...
You know what I would say?
Julia, you've got Noem saying, the senator didn't ask for a meeting, but she says she'll meet with him and find out what his concerns are. First, I want to get your reaction to that sound. But also, you and I have been talking about the fact that these quotas for ICE are so high. That's one of the reasons they've had to go after people who aren't necessarily criminals, that it's going to be very difficult for them to meet the White House prescribed number of deportations unless they're going after pretty much everybody they can find. How does that statement from Donald Trump today saying, well, let's leave alone agriculture workers, hospitality workers, how are those two things going to square? Is that basically making ICE's job impossible?
It is. I mean, it's completely conflicting because although there are a large number of people with criminal histories at large in the United States who are also immigrants, we understand as of last summer, there were over 400,000 people on the non-detained docket with criminal charges against them. A lot of times those people are harder to find. It takes a lot of investigations. Investigators who, by the way, have been pulled from their day jobs to go out and do these arrests of non-criminals in the field. What Noem said, though, about scheduling a meeting, I think that's her gut reaction to the chaos that just took place in front of her. I do think she's trying not to take the bait and turn this into something bigger. There also seem to be conflicting reports we're getting right now about whether Senator Padilla was actually arrested after he was taken out. So we'll let you know as soon as we confirm whether he was actually put in handcuffs and arrested or whether he was just pushed out of the room. I also know that a lot of media was not able to get into this room. They announced it very late, and they, of course, have security in situations like this. I've been through these security lines before. Sometimes it can be harder than getting into the White House in terms of having to show your credentials and get in. So there were a number of reporters that were not allowed into that room. I would imagine the senator was given special access to even get to that point where he was when that conflict and that disruption took place. But I do think, as David was saying, it means a lot. It's very symbolic what he was doing in that place. But as far as, the tactical results of today, I think what we're going to be talking about is whether or not this Department of Homeland Security and this administration is going to continue to defend the last few weeks on immigration as they've drastically intensified their efforts across the country, efforts that they said and that Noem said today they would use as a model to extend across the country, or whether or not they're going to begin backing off of this. As we recall, in June of 2018, when protests erupted across the country over the family separation policy, Trump did back off of that. It's not unprecedented for him to change and pivot on this policy, even though it's a winning one for him on this topic. He may still pivot. And so I think that's a big question of, are we actually getting to that flashpoint or are we not?